Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Dr. Ruby and I'm excited to have you join me today for another class on educational psychology. For those of you who have been following along, you know that we have been on a journey through the foundational theories of learning. This is our fourth class in the series. In the first class, we have covered the basics of educational psychology, its meaning, nature, scope and importance. In the second class, we have discussed Pavlov's classical conditioning. In the third class, we have covered Skinner's operant conditioning. You can find the links to those videos in the description below. In today's class, we are going to understand, with simple explanations, John B. Watson's theory of behaviorism. Watson is known for propagating the theory of behaviorism, which centers on the idea that all behaviors are a response to environmental stimuli. This theory emphasizes observable behaviors over internal thought processes, and today we will discuss how this can be applied in educational setting. This video covers what Watson's behaviorism is all about, the core concepts of the theory, such as environmental influence, conditioning, and habit formation. We will have a closer look at John B. Watson and his contributions to psychology. We will understand Watson's famous experiment, which is the Little Albert experiment. Eventually, we will understand the educational implications and how these concepts can be practically applied in a classroom setting. Now, let us begin with the basics. What is Watson's behaviorism? Watson's behaviorism is a theory of learning that argues that all behaviors are acquired through conditioning. Watson believed that human behavior is a direct response to environmental stimuli rather than being driven by inherent traits or internal mental states. The core idea here is that we are shaped entirely by our environment and experiences. According to Watson, every behavior we exhibit is a reaction to something in our environment. Let us take an example. Think about a child in a classroom who consistently receives praise from the teacher for raising their hand before speaking. This reinforcement encourages the child to continue raising their hand in the future. The behavior here, which is raising the hand, is a direct response to the stimulus, which is praise from the teacher. Watson's behaviorism is heavily rooted in the concept of conditioning, which is the process of learning behaviors through interactions with the environment. Unlike Pavlov, who focused on classical conditioning involving automatic response to stimuli, Watson emphasized that even emotional response could be conditioned. For example, a student who repeatedly experiences anxiety during surprise quizzes may begin to associate that anxiety with certain classroom cues, like a teacher's announcement of a pop quiz. In a classroom setting, if a teacher starts a lesson with an engaging story or activity, students may start to associate the beginning of every lesson with excitement and curiosity. Over time, they'll be more attentive at the start of each class due to the conditioned expectation of an interesting beginning. Now, let us break down the core concepts of Watson's behaviorism, starting with environmental influence. Watson's theory emphasized that behavior is shaped by the environment. This means that the way children behave, learn and react is largely due to the surroundings they are exposed to. For example, if a classroom promotes collaboration and positive social interactions, students are likely to develop cooperative behaviors and effective communication skills. In contrast, a classroom with strict rules and penalties may condition students to be more reserved and cautious. Conditioning. This is a central element in Watson's behaviorism. He proposed that behaviors, both positive and negative, are learned through conditioning. For example, in a high school setting, a teacher might use a system of rewards, like extra recess time or bonus points, to encourage timely submission of assignments. Over time, students who desire these rewards are conditioned to complete their work on time. Habit formation. Watson suggested that habits are formed through repeated experiences. For example, a student might develop the habit of starting homework immediately after school if they find that it results in more free time in the evening. In another scenario, if a student repeatedly disrupts the class and receives attention from the teacher or his classmates, even if it is negative attention, they might form a habit of being disruptive. This highlights the importance of reinforcing desirable behaviors consistently. In a classroom, if a student finds that studying in a group improves their grades and understanding, they might form a habit of group study sessions. Conversely, if a student realizes that they get less scolding when they quietly complete their homework, they might develop the habit of maintaining a low profile during class. Now, let us discuss about the man who pioneered this theory, John B. Watson. John B. Watson was an American psychologist and the primary propagator of the theory of behaviorism. Initially focused on animal psychology, he later shifted his work to human behavior, where he became one of the most influential figures in behavioral psychology. In 1913, Watson published his paper, Psychology as the Behaviorists View It, which laid the foundation for behaviorism as a major branch of psychology. He argued that psychology could be an objective science focused on observable behavior rather than internal mental states. His approach was revolutionary because it shifted the focus from introspection to observable and measurable behaviors. Watson's emphasis on conditioning as the primary mechanism for learning has deeply influenced fields such as education, therapy, and even advertising. His idea that with the right environmental control, any behavior could be shaped, paved the way for further research and development in behavioral psychology. Watson famously declared, "Give me a dozen healthy infants, well-informed, and my own specified world to bring them up in, and I will guarantee to take anyone at random and train him to become any type of specialist I might desire. A doctor, lawyer, artist, merchant chief, and yes, even a beggar man and thief, regardless of his talents, tendencies, abilities, vocations, and race of his ancestors." This statement clearly illustrates his belief in the power of environmental influence and conditioning over genetic predisposition. Now, let us take a closer look at Watson's most famous experiment, which illustrates the principle of conditioning in a dramatic way, the Little Albert experiment. Watson wanted to demonstrate that emotional responses could be conditioned in humans, just as physical behaviors could be conditioned as demonstrated by Pavlov's dogs. Watson and his assistant, Rosalind Reiner, conducted the experiment on an 11-month-old baby named Albert. Initially, Albert showed no fear when presented with a white rat, which served as a natural stimulus. Watson's aim was to condition a fear response to the rat. To achieve this, every time Albert reaches for the rat, Watson produced a sudden loud noise by striking a metal bar behind Albert's head. This loud noise naturally caused Albert to cry and show signs of fear. The noise was the unconditioned stimulus because it triggered a natural reaction. After repeatedly pairing the noise with the sight of the rat, Albert began to associate the two stimuli. Eventually, Albert started to cry and show fear just by seeing the rat, even without the loud noise. This demonstrated a conditioned emotional response. Watson successfully conditioned Albert to fear the rat, thereby proving that behavior, including emotional reactions, can be conditioned by manipulating environmental stimuli. Watson therefore concluded that behavior is not innate but is learned and shaped by the environment. This is a fundamental principle of behaviorism, suggesting that conditioning can explain most, if not all, human behaviors. Finally, let's talk about the educational implications of Watson's behaviorism. First, let us talk about creating a structured routine to keep students engaged in learning. According to Watson's behaviorism, behaviors can be shaped through repetition and consistency. In a classroom, this means having a predictable routine every day. Why is it important? Because routine helps students to feel secure and prepared, making them more likely to participate and focus. Let me give you an example. Think of starting every class with a question of the day. This can be a fun or thought-provoking question related to the previous class. Over time, students get used to this routine and are ready to engage as soon as class starts. The routine conditions them to think critically and prepare for learning without any extra effort. Next, let us discuss behavioral shaping, which means encouraging desired behavior step by step. Watson believed behaviors could be built gradually by reinforcing small steps toward a bigger goal. For example, if we want a student to become confident in public speaking, we don't ask them to give a full speech right away. Instead, we start by asking them to introduce themselves. When they do this well, we praise them or give them a small reward. Next, we ask them to speak for a minute about their favorite hobby. Slowly, step by step, they gain confidence. This is how we can use small reinforcement to shape more complex behaviors like speaking in front of a class. Another important implication is desensitization, which means helping students gradually get over fear or negative feelings they might have about certain subjects or activities. Example: imagine a student is afraid of participating in math class because they think that they are not good at it. Instead of forcing them to solve a complex problem on the board right away, a teacher might first ask them to solve a simpler problem in a small group or one-on-one setting. As they start feeling more comfortable, their fear or anxiety starts to decrease. This way, we slowly change their negative association with math to a more positive one. Now, let us look at environmental cues. Watson's theory tells us that our surroundings can influence our behaviors. In the classroom, we can use this idea by setting up different areas that cue different behaviors. For example, a reading corner could have comfortable chairs and soft light, which signals to students that it's a quiet, individual activity time. In contrast, a group work table with bright colors and open seating arrangement could cue students that it's time to collaborate and discuss with friends. This environment itself helps condition students to behave appropriately for each activity without much need for verbal reminders. Lastly, let us talk about feedback loops. Watson believed in giving immediate response to behaviors to shape them. In a classroom, this means giving quick and constructive feedback to help students improve continuously. For example, if a student answers a math problem incorrectly, instead of just marking it as wrong and moving on, the teacher could say, "You got the first step right, but check how you added these numbers in the next step." This kind of immediate feedback helps the student see what they did well and what they need to fix, reinforcing the right way to approach problems. Over time, this practice helps shape better learning habits. So that was all on today's class on Watson's behaviorism. I hope you liked the video. Please let me know in the comment section. Like, subscribe and share. Thank you for watching and see you in the next class.